welcome to the Spawn Chunks episode number 90 for Monday, May 25th, 2020. My name is Joel Duggan, and joining me as always is my good friend Jonny, but you may know him online as Pixel Riffs. Hello, sir.
Hello, and if you're wondering why Joel sounds suspiciously clean-shaven, you want to tune in to The Render Distance, which is the extended version of the podcast you can get at patreon.com/thespawnchunks by signing up and supporting the show. How are you doing today, Joel?
I'm good. I feel like I should have a whistle like Gopher from Winnie the Pooh. Like that. Something dramatic has changed. Like I don't imagine that anything has changed about the voice with the beard, but maybe sound dampening, natural sound dampening has been removed.
Us bearded types, we can know there's something acoustic about it. Anyway, let's.
I can get closer to the microphone without having any whiskers rustle around.
That's true. That's true. A little bit less white noise, maybe. So how's your Minecraft week been? What have you been up to?
So I actually took a page out of your book from last week where I played a little bit of Minecraft offline. Didn't stream, just kind of played it for myself, having some fun. I have been filling in and planning some areas of the city and discovered a large kind of bend in the river biome and realized that it would be an excellent spot for a modest ink farm. Our current ink farm on the server is very, very full. We don't need more ink. However, it is unloaded, and slowly but surely we will be whittling away. And as I'm making more gray concrete powder for this city, I feel like we're going to run through it quite quickly. So I thought, well, I can just make a small ink farm and then do it now while I'm still planning the city, and it'll just be running in the background as we do the rest of the construction. And so I logged in and was kind of designing that and trying to figure out where to put it and sort that kind of stuff out. And it's a fairly simple design. Like I looked up some stats about Squid, and it will be better in 1.16. I kind of was future proofing it, thinking like, well, I'm not gonna worry about too much land filling and clearing because they're going to be on a different what's the word I'm looking for? Spawn group.
Yeah, like
spawn
a mob cap. Yeah.
Mob cap. Thank you. The different mob cap from fishes when the 1.16 drops. So I'm not too worried about that. But also, we're filling in enough of the river on either side of it that there are some bodies of water that are going to be around, but I don't think it's going to completely remove any of the squid caps, because I've done a couple of columns. They're not full height. They are just a few sections of water, and I already have like 2 or 3 ink sacks in there, and I only ever played for like a couple hours. So like that's fine. That's all I needed to do. Plus I'll fill in the rest of the farm, but all it is just 2 water block sources with a fence gate underneath them.
Yep.
And then 2 more water block sources with a fence gate underneath them. And then to either side of that, holding it all in place, is a full column of fence gates.
Yep.
So it's a lot of fence gates, similar to those Guardian farms that you see from like Cub Fan and some of the newer designs. And it's a pain in the butt to make, but it's very efficient. Like it's just simple. You don't have to worry about anything. I'm going to be able to collect everything and send it to the main storage system. So like I'm happy to have a technical project because I like doing waterways and moving things around and things like that. But that's it. That's the only thing I did off stream was just that. And then on stream, it was just filling in the river, and we did some stuff with sponges. I did a couple of morning streams on like Tuesday, Thursday, just to kind of break it up. Ironically, I didn't stream on the weekend because of all the nice weather, and I had to do some adulting like laundry and cleaning and stuff. So having a different stream time brought in some new viewers, but then the people that can't make the weekend, but then ironically didn't stream on the weekend. So, but that's it. That's all I did. It was fun. Also, by the way, it's ripping out the resources at the bottom of rivers now before you fill them in. Like I got 2 shulker boxes full of sand.
Yeah, sand and clay are underrated resources as far as rivers go, and you don't have cause to like dredge a river very often in this game, and there's less need to do that, I think. But then if you may as well do it because you have to fill it in or dry the whole thing out for a squid farm anyway, then yeah, it's a gold mine.
Yeah, strip it out. It's very great. I mean, didn't get a lot of clay, but a lot of sand and gravel.
Yes, and sand and gravel are in short supply pretty much everywhere when it comes to like building with concrete. Like it's one of those things that like I don't use sand for glass anymore. I trade all of my glass from villages so I can keep it to make concrete out of it, which
nice,
is saying something. There's a lot of it. I have been working on transforming a jungle temple this week, and basically completely knocking down the original jungle temple and rebuilding it for what I imagine a jungle temple could be. Keeping the same basic concepts, like a fairly limited color palette, a lot of the kind of mossy stone look. I went with stone brick instead of cobblestone and mixed in a couple of other stone types with it as well. And I built a sort of Mayan-style step pyramid using those. So it's got a large staircase up four sides of it, and then the rest of it is kind of a single block staircase instead of using stairs themselves. And I thought it came together really well. I'm going to fill it with traps later this week, which is going to trap nobody but me, but I thought it would be kind of a fun excuse to do an episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide about traps, even though it's not a multiplayer experience, so there is nobody to trap, and I feel like I can talk about maybe the morality of laying traps for your server mates. But I think it'll be kind of fun to design some of that from a game design perspective, maybe, if not from a Minecraft griefing perspective.
And you can do traps in a way that are fun and potentially scare people, but don't necessarily do any real damage.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be like a couple of arrows of slowness or something like that, and like poison arrows could be a thing in jungle temples as well. Like you can kind of throw all of that stuff in. Slowness arrows are nice and easy to farm if you've got an easy access to an ice biome, and I got so many of them from just dealing with strays when I was building a mountain. So yeah, I have a bunch of those that I can do some fun stuff with. And I was thinking about maybe having it. There are emerald blocks inset into some of the doorways, and I like the idea of, if somebody tries to come up and steal an emerald block, there's an observer behind it, and it triggers like either a lava or a water dispenser, and the lava would be slow moving enough that you'd probably see it coming beforehand, but the water would be fast enough that it'd sort of flush you out, and if you manage to get the emerald block, you'd just be swept back down the steps to hit the bottom of it again.
It's too bad that we can't do larger objects in Minecraft, because I feel like a jungle temple with your own trap designs would be a really good opportunity to do like the Indiana Jones giant boulder chase.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing something like that where a hallway just fills up with gravel in stages. So instead of having something that constantly moves towards you, have it be just like rows of gravel dropping from the ceiling one after the other, and you'd still end up taking suffocation damage if you got caught in it. But it'd just be like a series of pistons retracting from the ceiling. So I might do something like that as well. I'm thinking about drafting a few ideas and doing more than one or two. There's definitely room for it because the footprint of this pyramid is, I think, at least 26 blocks long or something like that.
I saw this thumbnail. Yeah, it looks pretty big.
Yeah, it's sizable, so I can fit plenty of stuff in it. Outside of that, in Skyblock, I was working on an experimental kelp farm design. Occasionally, I like to do stuff that is just bizarre and probably inefficient, but could be a fun experiment. And this one, I was trying to get kelp to grow as high as it possibly could. By whenever you break the top part of a kelp block, or any part of a kelp block, really, as soon as it like decides for the next go round what the top block of a kelp plant is, it sort of randomly reassigns an age to it. And that's what stops kelp from all growing to the same height in oceans. So if the top block is, age, I think 25 is the limit, and you break it, that can reset to a number between 1 and 25 that is then how many more blocks it could grow. And I decided to create a kelp farm where every few blocks it gets broken by an observer, and then the observer lets it pass again as it continues to grow. And so in theory, if enough rolls of the dice happen that allow it to grow a few more blocks, it could just grow all the way to build height from the bottom of the world, which in Skyblock is accessible to me. So I've been building this really bizarre and kind of expensive to build kelp farm just because I want to see a stalk of kelp grow from the bottom of the world to the top. And it's been pretty successful, actually. I found that a lot of them, because they would hit like a number that they just couldn't grow any further than, like a few of the stalks ended up stopping like quite early, but then there was one that ended up growing beyond what you would normally expect, like beyond the 25 block maximum, of a kelp plant. So I at least proved my point, if not necessarily had like a fully successful thing. And eventually I'm going to install some way of having it all be farmed out of it as well. But
cool.
It's going to be completely redundant in 1.16 because you're going to be able to bone meal kelp at that point. But even after that, I think it will be kind of fun to mess around with the mechanics of stuff like this.
See, and I for farms like that, I think they're more interesting, and to me, I want to say more efficient time-wise, because bone mealing farm, you still have to have the bones. Like somebody has to turn the bones into bone meal. You know?
Yeah.
There are ways, I guess, to get automatic bone meal from like composters and villager farms, but like the size and effort involved in all of that compared to just having a mechanical farm that works on like a daylight sensor, you know, or something. The farms that you can set and forget, I think, are the best, even if they don't have the most efficient yield per hour.
Yeah.
I think something that you don't have to then interact with at all ever, other than stopping by and getting your stuff, I think are the best kinds.
Yeah, I like that kind of stuff, and I struggle with getting bones on my survival guide world because I don't like to AFK at farms, so I don't tend to just go AFK for mob drops a whole bunch. I tend to use my computer for other stuff, and I don't want to leave Minecraft running in the background, so I haven't got that many. However, in Skyblock, because the mob farm and that is so efficient and it runs automatically basically anytime I'm standing in the central island space, I have more bones than I know what to do with. So I'll probably end up revising a different farm design at some point if I actually want loads of kelp. But realistically, nice. I'm using blaze rods as fuel. I have a decent nether mob farm for that, and wither skeletons give me coal as well, so I don't need kelp blocks. It's just for the sake of it, really, at this point. It's a bit of fun, though.
Nice. I've been using coal in the city for fuel. I don't smelt a lot of stuff there. If I have any big smelting jobs, I usually do it back in the Nether Hub where I'm using blaze rods, as you mentioned. But I've been debating as to whether I want to try and get an alternate fuel source going. I looked at kelp, but I don't like the idea of having to craft kelp blocks afterwards. And I've seen some really cool ways to craft a lot of stuff at once. But as inefficient as it is as a fuel source, I kind of feel like if I had a nice big bamboo farm that just went straight into furnaces, I feel like that would be the way to go. And in the end, it is a little bit more efficient in terms of the fuel consumption, because if you have an odd number of items, like if you're not smelting perfect stacks of things, then you're not wasting a coal that would smelt eight items if you're using bamboo, because bamboo, I think it's like half the efficiency of sticks or something. So, you know, you might use like 12 bamboo to smelt like one item, but it's better than using one coal that could have smelted 8 but only smelted the 1.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's always that equation that kind of balances that stuff out. Let's move on to talk about the news this week, because we have a fair amount to talk about, actually. There is a snapshot for this week, Minecraft Java Edition Snapshot 20W21A, and custom world support is back, and I'll read from the blog post here. In this snapshot, Mojang has added support for custom world settings and custom dimensions. This is an early release to gather feedback about this feature. Note that custom world settings and dimensions are considered experimental and unsupported. Any custom world settings may change from one snapshot to the next, and worlds using custom settings will be clearly marked as experimental in your worlds list. So yeah, it's worth checking some of this stuff out, because custom dimensions are a brand new thing, more or less. We kind of saw the beginnings of this with the Infinity snapshot they did as an April Fool's joke. Turns out maybe not so much of an April Fool's thing as planning for the future. But custom dimensions, custom world settings used to be a thing a while ago and were removed, I think, as of 1.13. And custom worlds couldn't be updated beyond that point. So really great to see they are revisiting this stuff again. Outside of that, there are some new features, including the ability to toggle redstone wire between a cross and a dot, adding import and export world settings functionality, adding a new disable multiplayer command line option, and a new disable chat command line option. This new redstone toggle allows you to right-click a single piece of redstone to change back and forth between the quote-unquote new redstone cross and a redstone dot. And the redstone dot actually has functionality in that it will not power its surrounding blocks in the same way that a cross does. Other changes in 20W21A include piglins no longer walking around while they are admiring some gold you've dropped. If you hurt a piglin while it is admiring gold, the gold will now disappear. There is an increased chance of ores to generate in the basalt deltas to balance against the reduced amount of netherrack in that biome. Lily pads are now considered junk fishing loot rather than treasure, and there are updated logos for Mojang Studios and Minecraft. There are several technical changes regarding commands in this snapshot, all of which are listed on Minecraft.net. We will not go into the entire thing. And a little bit more here about custom worlds. The Edit World screen now has an option to export the world settings to a JSON file so that you can import them into other instances of Minecraft if you so wish. And during world creation, you can import your previously exported world settings. There are new parameters accessible in these custom world settings, but as previously mentioned, they are experimental. There is a full list of fixed bugs on Minecraft.net as well. We have some here that are worthy of note. In that trying to interact with entities 3 or more blocks away without seeing its eyes only interacted client-side. That has now been fixed. Also fixed is hostile mobs sometimes stopping attacking or following their target when they're directly next to it. And I think baby zombies often do that, so we'll see how lethal they are in the next snapshots. Nether Sprouts items were not visible when held in the hand in first person, has been fixed. Blackstone and basalt prevented ancient debris and other nether ores from generating, that's overlap has been fixed as well. And finally, wither skeletons were not spawning inside of wither roses. They are actually supposed to because they're immune to the wither effect, so that has been officially fixed as well.
The next little bit of news, obviously, is that Minecraft Dungeons launches tomorrow, Tuesday, March 26, 2020. I have pre-ordered, and I'm looking forward to it. So while we're talking about it, I mean, we're going to talk about Minecraft Dungeons, I think, at length in our main discussion this week. But I did want to point out that the pre-order process for me was a pain in the butt. It did not feel good between the combination of the purchase just not working. I'm not sure if anybody else experienced this, but I tried to pre-purchase a couple times this week, and Microsoft was just like, nope, not having it. So I don't know what the problem was there. Eventually, there was some confusing UI things with my end on the PayPal side of things and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, it did go through. And we talked before, I think last time we talked about Dungeons, about the pricing of it. And for those of you wondering, I was surprised that after the exchange rate, it was $38.99 Canadian plus taxes for the Hero Edition.
Which is $30 US, right?
Yes.
Something along those lines.
I think it's 20. Yeah, because it's $19.99 for the base game US. I think $29.99 for the Hero Edition.
Yeah.
So it came to $38.99. But then when you put taxes on in my region, it comes to 45 Canadian, which is more than I was anticipating to pay. Not that it's a big deal, but it's one of those things where I'm just like, oh, that added up rather fast.
Yeah.
I think probably is that I was looking at those numbers and not realizing that they were in US dollars at first.
Yeah.
When we were first talking about the pricing and stuff. But you can go to Minecraft Dungeons on Minecraft.net, click on the Order Now button. I have installed, so you can pre-install, which is great. And I clicked on Launch just to kind of see what would happen, to see if it added it to the Minecraft launcher. It doesn't. It's still its separate thing. But it just says, hey, you're too early. It doesn't launch until tomorrow.
Yes, I think the launcher is kind of a compromise because it was not it's registered to your Microsoft account, not your Mojang account, and so there is some account discrepancy there that they couldn't handle having you logged in with two different types of account on the Java Minecraft launcher. So that's just an unfortunate side effect of the way they are processing all of that stuff. But I think that infrastructure is what ultimately allows you to play anywhere, play with Xbox Live via crossplay, that kind of stuff. So that's ultimately for the better, even if it is a little bit inconvenient to not have all of your games in one place. I have put a link to an IGN review of Minecraft Dungeons. Obviously, review copies have been sent out to various publications. The embargo is lifted, and they are now reviewing it. The IGN review was, if not glowing, at least very positive. They said, this is going to be an entry-level dungeon crawler for people. It's nothing, completely innovative. It's just, a Minecraft skin over a Diablo-style game, and they've got enough variety in there to keep you coming back and replaying it. They remarked on the game's polish, and said there were a couple of inconsistencies with a couple of elements of it, but aside from that, they were pretty happy with it. And I think that's the general sentiment across the board. I've seen a lot of folks playing it on Twitch, a lot of creators received early access codes so they could play over this weekend, get people excited for the release and stuff like that. And like I said, like Joel said earlier, we're going to be talking about Minecraft Dungeons for the main discussion this week. But let's spend a little bit of time with the snapshot first. Anything stands out to you from this snapshot changelog?
So I'm not a big custom worlds player, but I do imagine that these tools being reintroduced into the game, even while they are experimental, will be useful for any creative builders and custom adventure map makers once they settle on implementation from the Mojang side of things. And of course, survival players that do like this kind of stuff will have fun with it. I'm thinking, like how they did like amplified worlds back in like Hermitcraft season 4 or something like that. I can't remember
season
what season
3,
that
but
was.
yeah.
Was it 3? Yeah, like just stuff like that can be fun for those content creators that want something a little bit different from time to time. But I think about also creative builders like Gemini Tay, who we've had on the show, that have to spend a lot of time doing like custom terrain, painting, and sculpting. And if you can minimize that by already giving yourself some decent mountains with some settings, then I think that could maybe help people out in the long run.
Yeah, you can generate yourself a pretty solid floating island world, which is like, part and parcel of all of those fantasy style builds that you find people building, floating castles and stuff like that. It seems like a good place to start. I have a little bit of experience with world customization. We'd done a bit of that on the decidedly vanilla multiplayer server that I used to be a part of. In Season 4, we raised the sea level of our worlds to make everything more accessible by boat, and changed a few of the terrain height maps to match that. So we ended up with slightly higher mountains, slightly more impressive hills, and a sea level that I think was around Y70 or something like that. So it was a few blocks higher, and meant that there were more kind of boat canals and pathways that we could get around, naturally formed by the landscape. So there is some tweaking that can be done to make some really interesting presets with the old settings. I haven't really dived into the new settings, and to be honest, it wasn't all, it wasn't me doing it in the first place, so I wasn't sure exactly what I needed to tweak to get a world to look good. But hopefully a similar level of customization is possible, and we'll start to see people doing some really interesting stuff with it.
The thing that I wish could be done, and it's not clear that could be, is that I would love to have a little bit more of a natural world look to the Citadel, but that would more than likely involve resetting. And like, I don't know if I can bring what I have now into a new custom world. I guess it would be a matter of like trimming the chunks and then. But
you'd have to export it into a new world seed using some sort of editing program. I don't think it would be super easy to. You couldn't change your world seed and many of your custom world settings on the back end without probably significant problems.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, especially if you've got something where there are continents, like where you could maybe just save one continent and then have other continents be other things. But so yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm unhappy with the Citadel. Actually, for the random way that we chose the seed, it's still got some surprisingly cool features for Minecraft world, but it also has some surprisingly janky floaty strips of things. It's like, why is that's not good at all. It just adds to my to-do list, especially if you want to build in that area. But yeah, so I think overall these kind of controls are good. I think mostly like adventure map people and like creative builders are going to probably use it the most.
Yeah.
I do, however, find the Redstone Dot Toggle huge. Like, that to me is a really big change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. At the very least, Redstone Blood is going to be back for the folks who used those like dots of redstone and were like slightly annoyed that for aesthetic reasons the cross didn't look exactly the way they wanted it to. It does set an interesting precedent for controlling redstone directionality as well. Aside from things like repeaters and comparators, which you adjust the settings on, this is the first time we've really had a redstone component that you can right click on, like as far as redstone wire goes, and it changes in the same way that there are data packs that allow for rotation of redstone components via like a special wrench tool that you just replace a carrot on a stick with or something. But I think it's interesting that we're starting to see stuff like that cropping up in vanilla gameplay. How likely that is to extend to other things remains to be seen, and it may not be in the end. But it's an interesting first case of something like this happening. And I think Mumbo tweeted something about this earlier, and he said like he'd had maybe a day or two to mess around with it and said it's very useful, but only for when you randomly need it. It's not a game changer, and you can't necessarily design a redstone contraption around that as a feature, but it can get you out of certain tricky situations, he says. So that's and that's worth noting.
And I think it's going to get people out of the frustrations that I found complicated when I was first learning redstone and didn't know as much as I know now, which is, powering things next to a redstone line or a redstone dot that you didn't want to be powered.
Yeah.
And things like a hopper, like you make a construction and you're like, why are my items not getting to where they want to go? And you realize that you've got a redstone line that's running behind a hopper and happens to be powering that hopper. Well, now you should be able to right click that thing and have it not, and have it clearly say, oh, I'm traveling into this hopper. That means I'm powering it. And if I'm not traveling into that hopper, that means I'm not powering it.
Yeah.
And I think it's just going to make redstone accessible for the people that have less experience with it. And I would imagine once more time has been spent with it in specific situations, like Mumbo said, you're going to find some of the heavier people that do redstone being able to like compact things a little bit. Like there's going to be that one time that, Mumbo or somebody on the SciCraft server make a piston door and realize, oh, wait a minute. If I switch this redstone dot to a cross or vice versa, I can make this thing a block thinner, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for those folks, that can mean a big difference in terms of where they can fit that thing, right?
Yes, definitely. And I think what it comes down to, the thing that links this redstone dot and cross thing and the world customization thing, is that having more options is better in this case.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that I think has applied to some stuff in Minecraft for a while, but and anytime options are removed or taken away or changed significantly, people sort of go, well, why couldn't we have both? Why couldn't we have this and that? And this is also with the redstone dot really being one of those situations where it wasn't a whole big deal to add back in, but it's just going to make some people's quality of life a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly. How do you feel about the gold disappearing when a piglin is hurt?
I figured that was going to come sooner or later. Like, there were people exploiting the fact that you could get the gold back from piglins and so forth, so it made sense ultimately. And yeah, I think it makes sense for the piglin's character. If you're looking at something and then you get hit, you're not going to continue looking at the gold. You're going to pull out a crossbow and shoot whatever's hurting you. So yeah, it makes the piglins feel a little bit more logical, a little bit more alive, and reacting to stuff a certain way. So yeah, I think it makes sense. It stops the exploit of people just getting their gold back as soon as they've tried to trade with a piglin. Even though I know that was that was previously nerfed a little bit by them not bartering anything, not like throwing out whatever they wanted to give you until they then accepted the gold ingot. But I guess now you sort of can't change your mind if you throw a gold ingot on the ground. Yeah,
precisely. I mean, and again, I agree. Good change in my opinion. I thought the Nether Sprouts fix was a bit haphazard. I have worked on some data packs where I have to show what it's like to hold like one of my custom chair models in your hand before you place it, and I know that you can control how that model looks in different locations in the game, hotbar, hand, head, etc. And I thought that just raising it in the hand would be something that you could do without the image itself being raised in the inventory. So now, unlike grass, the sprouts appear across the middle of the frame in the hotbar, and it looks weird. It looks right in your hand, but it looks really strange in your hotbar because grass and mushrooms and everything else are they appear kind of like with a baseline in the inventory.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't looked into the sprite sort of comparison enough here to really judge how well this has been implemented. I am wondering if this is the right time to bring up my one gripe with Glaze Terracotta, where it doesn't place down in the direction it's facing when you hold it in your hand. You're kind of holding it backwards, and so like this is most noticeable if you have the magenta terracotta that's got an arrow on it, because if you place it down, the arrow is facing the opposite direction to the way it looks when you're holding it in your hand. And previously, I've had a friend of mine, Dnator Games, make me a resource pack that changes the rotation of that item so that it looks like it places in the direction that it shows it when you're holding it in your main hand, because that confused the heck out of me with Glaze Terracotta for a while. I'm sort of wondering if I can like submit a bug report or something and see if we can get that fixed for this update.
I haven't noticed that because on the Citadel we run the data pack that allows you to rotate
Yes.
the terracotta once it's placed with
Yeah.
a wrench tool. We don't use the redstone one; we use the terracotta one, which is incredibly useful. It just saves you a ton of time
Yes.
and guesswork and getting things wrong like 6 times over.
Yeah, and it would be great if it didn't involve having to add a specialist tool to the game in vanilla. I think that's probably why they've avoided doing something like that, is because, again, it sets a precedent. If you have a terracotta rotation wrench, why not a something else rotation wrench? Why not rotate all blocks? And then, yeah, you get into tricky territory with implementing stuff like that. But yeah, just rotating it so that it was more predictable to me would make a lot more sense. I guess that's more or less it for the snapshot, really. The technical changes and stuff I will skip over because I really don't know all that much.
Before we move on, I do want to comment that I think it's nice that they corrected the wither skeleton thing. I think that those farms with withered roses and things are going to... It's nice that they're not creating an OP farm that collects all the things, but you can still get wither roses and skeletons and stuff like that.
You can still effectively limit a nether fortress farm to just wither skeletons if you want to, which is very good.
Yeah, it's like a built-in filter.
Yes, definitely, and that again prevents you from removing functionality that people could use that stuff for, but then ultimately balances them with other mob farming techniques. So it makes sense, and it's nice to see them kind of canonizing that and like actually having an official correction that wither skeletons are supposed to spawn there. It kind of makes sure that this is the way the game is supposed to function, and that it's not just some sort of exploit. It's intended behavior at this point. I'm really excited for Minecraft Dungeons, excited to get into the discussion, and there was a note in the show notes here about whether or not characters and progress would transfer over from the beta. From what I have seen, they do if you are playing on Windows. So I don't think... I've seen some folks who played the beta that was only available on Windows 10. They're now playing on Xbox One, and they start from scratch with no character data or anything like that. As far as I know, they're using the same account that they would have been using as well. So I don't think it transfers to other platforms, but I think somebody else who was playing on Windows 10 said if you transfer over your beta stuff from the Windows 10 beta, you get it in the full version on Windows 10. So yeah, hopefully we should see some more people basically picking up where they left off if they've been playing during the beta. We ready to move on to chunk mail?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Okay. This one comes in from Solomon T, who asks, how would you structure the Minecraft movie? It says, hello, Jonny and Joel. I'm a massive fan of the show. You probably provide the most intelligent Minecraft content on the internet. That's not to say I don't enjoy the more ridiculous stuff just as much, but you get the gist. Personally, I enjoy Minecraft as a creative tool and as a way to enjoy mini-games. Firstly, do you have any tips getting into survival mode? My main question for you is actually about the Minecraft movie. The chat about the Minecraft movie in development is that by all accounts it will be live action. How would you guys structure a Minecraft movie? The current plot sounds alright, but is there anything you would prefer? And how would you do it? Animation or live action with CGI? Personally, I would expect it to be live actors in a CGI environment, although hopefully with some sets. Would love to hear your thoughts. Solomon. Thanks, Solomon, for that, and a link to the Minecraft.net page where it says the Minecraft movie is just around the corner, dated April 16th, 2019. So that's a long corner you got going on, and I'm pretty sure the release date is now somewhere in 2022. But yes, interesting to bring up the Minecraft movie once again. Let's quickly cover the first part of this email, though. Any tips, Joel, for getting into survival gameplay if you are a creative player or somebody who just enjoys minigames?
I would just take it one step at a time. Like, don't rush it. There's a lot of tutorials out there. I know a guy that does one.
I've heard of
that. That can get you started. But one thing that's nice about the survival guide is that you took your time with it. And I think that a lot of times people will see experienced Minecraft players like on Hermitcraft or Legacy Server or other people, and they just go straight to endgame in the first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And if you're new to survival, just let it simmer. Like, just enjoy it. Just go slow. You can have fun with the restriction of blocks that you have, unlike in creative, when you first start. And go exploring, use some of the new you don't know how good you have it, with some of the new mechanics where you can set a spawn point in a bed and not have to wait until nighttime. Like, there's all these different things that you can kind of use now that are in the game. to have things be a little bit easier for you. You know, like finding bees and working with all that kind of stuff very early on, rather than having to find them later in your game. Um, I think that would be a good way to go. And as we mentioned before, if for some reason you find yourself stuck with an idea about what to do, I would utilize the natural landscape that Minecraft has given you for inspiration. And if you can, come up with a decent story. If you're a creative builder, then you might already have that experience of like building a castle with a theme or an idea or a society in mind or something. So if you're new to survival, look at the landscape, try to figure out how you want to change it, how you want to build on it, but then come up with a story that's going to inform how you go forward. And I think that once you start getting some infrastructure and start, exploring how to navigate the world and deal with the mobs and have all that kind of stuff, then I think you'll start to really enjoy it.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that. I think it depends what kind of creative mode you've been playing as well, because we like to think of creative mode as just starting from scratch in a flat world, but then some people might be creating, creative mode builds on a traditional kind of default Minecraft world and just in creative mode instead of survival. So, you might have an eye for that kind of stuff already, and the things that are, unfamiliar to you is just the grind for resources and combat with mobs and that kind of thing. And so I think it's fun to just relax into not having to worry too much about whatever the next project is, because in creative you are constantly trying to figure out what's the next thing I'm building. And in survival you can allow yourself to be immersed in just exploring a world at your own pace, at walking speed until you have elytra or horses or minecarts or however you would like to travel. And you can go caving and, encounter stuff like that. The most fun stuff in the early game of survival especially is finding spawners and finding diamonds, because diamonds obviously offer the longest durability of tools, at least right now until netherite comes in, and then, more protective armor and that kind of stuff. And spawners mean that you can start experience farms and farming mobs and the resources that you get from those. And I think that's a really good place to start with automated farming, which is something you will want to do a lot of in the later game if you want your survival experience to be comparable to your creative experience. If you are used to having abundant resources from creative mode and you want that in survival, you got to start learning about automated farms. But you can do that, like Joel was saying, at your own pace. It's something that you can absorb slowly over time and then dip back into creative if you want to just go over the design elements of something before building it from scratch in your survival world. Get used to having gravity. Gravity will be your worst enemy for the first little while in survival, but trust me, it's very rewarding building something in survival after you've been doing stuff in creative for a while.
Yeah, and one of the things that you can use to decide what you're going to build next is, what do you need? Do you need paper? Do you need glowstone? What do you need? Because a lot of the farming, and even if it's just basic manual farms, food, things like that, I think will inform as you step forward.
Yeah.
With regards to the Minecraft movie, I actually did a little bit of digging because I didn't really know much about this beforehand, and it's going to be a little bit too late. I think they're already too invested to change their mind about live action, but I think live action is a mistake. I would much prefer an animated feature like a Lego movie, and the subsequent sequels and spin-offs and stuff. I think they are fun and don't shy away from what they are. Like in a Lego movie, you'll see someone take a vehicle that they're in and just like reconstruct it on the spot. And I think that kind of lends itself well to Minecraft. Maybe not vehicles, but like the kind of shape-shifting environment, that we're in. But it sounds like they are already well on their way to do some live action stuff. The original release date on the article Simon shared was incorrect. I think it was May 24th, 2019, but now it's March 4th, 2022 is the release date. The story is going to follow a teenage girl and her unlikely group of adventurers who have to save the overworld from the Ender Dragon. So it's not really anything outside of the norm there. We'll have a link to the Minecraft movie Wiki in the show notes for this week's episode, so you can check out some more details. But the current director is Peter Soleil from Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. He's the third director on the project and the fifth writer. Currently, Alison Schroeder is the sixth writer as of June 24th, 2019. Mojang Studios has also partnered with Warner Brothers on the feature. So Warner Brothers is an experienced movie house, obviously. But it's been in production in one form or another since 2014. And as I mentioned, it's on its third director and fifth writing team, second rewrite. That does not instill a lot of confidence in me that the film is going to be very good. Now, I'm not the target audience. I get that. Not only am I not the family movie audience, I'm also not the kid audience that they're probably going to be aiming this at. However, I have been wrong before. Unlike the horribly lowbrow, thinly plotted Transformers films from 2007 to 2017, directed by Michael Bay, the Bumblebee film from 2018, directed by Travis Knight, aimed at a totally different younger audience, was really fun. I really liked it. It's a good movie. Also written by Christina Hodson. So the fact that they have Alison Schroeder, a woman writing a story about a teenage girl adventuring in a Minecraft kind of situation, that's good. I don't. It just feels like too many spoons in the pot, and unless they went right back to the drawing board, that I'm not holding my breath. How about you?
Yeah, I feel like since the news about the Minecraft movie originally broke, which, as you said, was like 6 years ago now, there's been a couple of interesting examples of video game movies. The one I'm thinking of in particular, I think I've referenced it on the show before when we've talked about the Minecraft movie, is Detective Pikachu, which was a decent blend of CGI game stuff and live action, and it worked for a lot of people, although there is precedent for humans and Pokemon coexisting anyway, because that's the Pokemon games. So yeah, I'm not sure if the whole voxel-based Minecraft aesthetic is really going to mesh well with the real world. It will ultimately be about how they handle that. And I think the worst case scenario is we get a repeat of Adam Sandler's movie Pixels from, I think, 2015, which was like giant kind of Pac-Man and Space Invaders and stuff eating up like a modern-day New York or something like that. I never saw that, but it looked like a special effects extravaganza and incredibly shallow. So I don't think anybody's expecting this to be like a deep and meaningful experience or anything. I am ultimately just hoping for it to be good quality and entertaining for its target audience. I think that's all anybody can expect of it, and I think that's kind of what you get out of like the Sonic the Hedgehog movie that just came out recently. Like, it's not going to be groundbreaking works of cinema or anything. It's going to be just, summer blockbuster, entertaining, fun. Hopefully it makes its budget and so forth. I am wondering if the rewrites are really just the kind of development philosophy we see from Mojang Studios being, we want to get this right. We want to make sure the tone is right. We want to make sure it feels like Minecraft. We want to make sure it is a product commensurate with our values as a brand. And so, yeah, I agree that cycling through all of these directors and writers and so forth may be a concern, but I am hopeful that it is just them trying to make sure that the final product is something that they can be happy with. And then hopefully their audience can be happy with as well. Although keeping the Minecraft audience happy, as we have learned, is not always the easiest thing to do. So we will see. Personally, I don't know if I would, I don't know enough about the Minecraft movie to tell you how I would change anything at this point. There is so little information about it other than a brief plot synopsis that I don't know if there's anything I would prefer at this point other than, a movie set wholesale in the Minecraft world, which just becomes something like, Minecraft Dungeons opening cinematic or Minecraft story mode or something like that. How do you translate that to the big screen and make it still feel like a big budget movie instead of just another episode of Element Animation's Villager News? There's a lot of hard thought that has to go into how do we make this feel like a Minecraft cinema event. And best of luck to them is all I can really say at this point.
Yeah, I know that like there was a small live action component to the Lego movie.
Yeah, there's a live action cutaway kind of bit,
at the beginning and end and stuff like that. But then there's also movies like Jumanji, which, while once they got into the video game were still live action, there were some like overlay video game stuff that happened, and those movies do not take themselves seriously, and they're quite successful and entertaining. I haven't seen the second. I heard really good things about the second, but I liked the first quite a bit. I thought it was really fun. So you never know. Like maybe it's a Jumanji / Tron sort of experience where this teenage girl and her friends get sucked into Minecraft, and then for the chunk of the film or parts of the film, they're actually in the CG world. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be a combination of like Roger Rabbit style, where
Yeah.
like Minecraft stuff is existing with real world stuff. There might be a border there. There could be a portal. I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. Like I said, we don't know enough about it to really understand or even criticize. But I know that you had a really cool topic that you wanted to dive into this week for the anticipation of Minecraft dungeons.
Yeah, I just figured we'd have a free-for-all about our experiences of the beta, kind of like go back over that, since we sort of did the same thing with the Nether update snapshots, where we kind of reviewed our thoughts on the Nether update as a whole. I feel like we could do that with Minecraft dungeons, and sort of going into this week, maybe set some expectations, and maybe we'll come back next week after we've inevitably had a few days to play it and see how we feel about it next week. But this week, I feel like we should explore a few questions, which I've written down here in our show notes. Namely, how much did we each play during the beta? How much do we plan on playing the full game? And are we planning single player or multiplayer? What are the most appealing aspects of the game that we have found so far? Do we have any favorite weapons, artifacts? What's our loadout looking like? Are there any features we're looking forward to that weren't in the beta but have been in promotional material for the game? And how could the game be expanded or improved upon? We also had a quick chat with the folks in the Smeltery section of our Discord, which is for the All Producer tier and above. And Montrask asked, what platform should you buy the game for, and what kind of gameplay focus should you expect? They said something about, what kind of controller you're used to as well, so I'm sure we can fold that into the discussion. So let's start from the very top. How much did you end up playing during the beta? Because it was available for a few weeks there.
Yeah, I played through the available first levels, first a bit on my own on stream. Then I played the second part with you, but the middle part overlapped. So I think I played through Creeper Woods twice.
Right, yeah.
Maybe a third time on my own where I went to go mess around and ended up playing for like 2 hours, something like that. Which is easy to do. But I very much enjoyed it, and I didn't feel it was repetitive at all. So I'm sure the story bits will feel repetitive on multiple playthroughs, but that to me, I would expect that. But I'm looking forward to. I might even start fresh. Like I might just be like, I don't know if they changed anything from those first 2 levels. They probably haven't, but it might be worth it for me to just without too much time invested in like a quote unquote end level character. I might just be like, well, let's just start from scratch and see what's up. So I don't know if I'll delete the other characters, but I'll certainly start a new one, I think, and just kind of go from there. And I think too that for stream content, I'll be streaming the full game for sure. I already have plans to play multiplayer both on and off stream and stuff. But I feel like playing from the beginning, having already done it, would allow me to then talk a little bit more with the audience. When you're first getting going, because you've done it before.
Yeah, I played through all of the stuff that was available at the time. I played through it even on the hardest difficulty settings by the end. And I basically stopped so that I didn't end up finding all of the weapons, armor, artifacts, and so forth that was in the game, just in case the final game didn't add too much more. Like, I didn't want to burn out on all of these items and go, oh, is that it? Turns out, from what I've seen, my feelings were completely unjustified, because there is tons of stuff we have not seen yet. But either way, yeah, I ended up playing through a bunch. I played multiplayer with you, I played mostly single player, and I played a fair amount of that just casually by myself, just to like wind down. Like, it's a very nice, relaxing game, and I feel like that's how I'm going to end up playing it. I'll probably play it more casually to unwind than I will on camera. I might stream a couple of sessions here and there, but given the amount of other people who've been streaming it already, I'm not exactly going to be the first past the post, and anybody who's interested has plenty of places to watch it. But obviously, if you've got a built-in audience for this kind of thing, it's worth giving a go. And I think there's less of an individual approach to dungeons the way there is with Minecraft, because you can tune into Minecraft and see people playing the game any number of different ways. Whether it's just different approaches to the survival game, to people building creative or playing mini games or anything like that. And I feel like dungeons is a very individual experience as far as the weapons and armor you accumulate and how you play through it, but everybody is playing through the same story, the same levels. So it's ultimately about what those viewers turn up for. Is it to find out what the story is with the Archaeologist, or is it just to see people wreck shop for a couple of hours? So we'll see. We'll see how exciting that is. I'll probably mostly play it single player, but there's definitely a couple of people who we could hook up with if we want to play a little bit of a multiplayer. I might even see if I can dig out my other Xbox controller and play a bit of local co-op with my wife if she's interested in that. Because it's always nice having some local co-op action as well. Because online multiplayer seems to be, I think, up to 4 players, but you can do a couple of people locally as well. So.
And that's cool, especially if you, like you said, if it's an unwind game, and if you can unwind, with your wife, then that's great. You just some mutual interest and something different than Netflix or whatever happens to be, making the rounds for the evening entertainment. I know, like I said, I'll be streaming the game for sure. I like that it'll give me something to play when I don't feel like playing Minecraft and I want to play something a little bit more action based.
Yeah.
But it will still be within that same world, and it probably won't alienate the Minecraft audience that I have built up.
Yeah.
I have been pretty good about playing other games on stream. I do some art streams. Like, people know that I do more than just Minecraft, and when they show up, I do get a much smaller audience. So when I play something like Industries of Titan or No Man's Sky, No Man's Sky's got its own audience as well, but I feel like as far as the Minecraft stuff is concerned, I absolutely get a much larger view, chat room when I'm playing Minecraft, no matter what I'm doing. Filling in rivers is not exciting, but I still had quite a lot of people show up. So it's one of those things where it'll be nice to be able to change pace for a little bit. Even just like, wind up or wind down. Like, if you're doing a longer stream and you don't necessarily want to be playing Minecraft for 3 or 4 hours, you can play Minecraft Dungeons for the first hour, then switch,
Yeah.
Play a dungeon, bring some people in, and then switch, after a break, maybe switch, what you're doing. I still don't know how to switch scenes in OBS, from Streamlabs without ending switching scene collections without ending the stream. It always seems to crash.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I can do that quite right. But as far as things like the most appealing aspect of the game, which you brought up, I find the combat really satisfying. Like, really satisfying. Plus, we're seeing a lot of bad guys in the game that are new to the Minecraft universe, which I find really interesting, and kind of like what's around the corner, kind of just over the horizon sort of stuff. The Angry Stone Wall guy, I'm paraphrasing, I don't really remember the name of the
Geomancer is that one.
Geomancer, yeah. Really, really cool stuff. And when you have to deal with things like that, it kind of reminds you, oh, I'm not playing Minecraft. This is not as simple as shooting arrows and swiping at people with a sword. Like, there's some strategy here. And on the harder difficulties, those Geomancers combined with the Illagers. Is it the Illagers? No, they're all Illagers.
Vindicators with the axes.
No, it's the jaws that come out of the ground.
Oh, Evokers.
The Evokers are hard. Like, on harder difficulties, they're I shouldn't say they're hard. You have to think. Like, you really have to deal with them. And if you're dealing with them and like Geomancers and stuff, it's like, oh, holy heck. It really makes you think in a different way than playing Minecraft, which I really like. So those are the things that I think are appealing to that, is that you can't go into this and fall asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, you
can't maybe level 1.
You can't coast on just your Minecraft knowledge alone, because there are other things this game wants to throw at you, which is great.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I think the Geomancer and other variant mobs like that, and sort of brand new mobs, expanding the Minecraft canon in a way is really fun. And that's definitely a highlight for me. I don't find the combat in regular Minecraft satisfying at all, but I find the combat in this game deeply satisfying. And I think part of the fun of it is experimentation. It's finding out what combinations of artifacts, enchantments, and weapons really shine together. And there are a bunch of different play styles within that, whereas with regular Minecraft, you basically have the top tier armor, which is diamond armor with protection, unbreaking, mending, and so forth. Like, everybody effectively ends up with the same equipment. It seems like they've worked really hard to make sure there's equipment in this game that's going to appeal to a variety of play styles, so that you're going to have differences between players, especially when you're playing multiplayer and doing what we did, where, you would tank and I would do ranged stuff, and then we'd kind of flip back and forth depending on what gear we ended up getting. So finding a variety of stuff in there is going to be great. What were your favorite weapons? Like, you ended up getting the is it the pink rascal or something like that? That bow that makes the boing noise and like
yeah, I don't remember
confuses
what
the
it was called, but
confuses
yeah,
the
it
enemies.
was some sort of like strange bow thing, and I ended up running out of arrows because I was using it so much because it was so fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, like stuff like that, which I think came in at the higher difficulties than when we played through. Um, I mean, the bow stuff is fun. I really like the variety of animations. So having a bow that's enchanted or does something different, like explodes or lights people on fire. And there was one weapon. It was a bow that had an enchant that said, like, 20% of your arrows will be explosive. And what's really cool about that is that it's accurate and repetitive. So it's basically like 1, 2, 3, and 4 arrows are normal, and 5 explodes.
Mm-hmm.
So you can count it out. So you can shoot 4 enemies and then shoot the explosive arrow at the harder enemy.
Yeah.
And it'll take them down a tick more than just a regular arrow. And so that kind of deep mechanic I really enjoyed. But I also just like the variety in animations. So I appreciate the swishy efficiency of the size, the twin size that I think you picked up at some point.
Yeah.
But the inner Gimli in me just likes a good axe, because you have
Yeah.
like, there's 2 solid strikes and then there's like a spin. So like with each subsequent strike, you have a more powerful and more, what's the word I'm looking for? More engaging animation of your character. Like, you look like you're kicking butt, really kicking butt, and then ending the person. Like, you're ending the bad guy. Like, this is the final swish and you're done. And that, I find, even though it's the same 3 animations, it does kind of vary things up a bit. And there are different animations with the size, I should say, but they're so fast that you don't necessarily have that oomph to them. I like you're talking about how mobs are not satisfying to fight in Minecraft. And for me, this is a personal thing. There's a lot of people that are much better at it than me in Minecraft. I don't like melee in first person. I think it's hard to gauge. Like, I can barely hit a spider or a baby zombie without them hitting me first. I just kind of feel like I'm spamming and just waiting for them to fall over dead. But the difference, I think, with Minecraft dungeons is that it's easier to aim. It's easier to see what you're hitting and what the distance is between you and the bad guy. And also the physics of that final strike is very satisfying. Mobs in Minecraft just kind of fall over sideways. They don't really go flying.
Yeah.
Unless you hit them with like a piston, or like, unless you send them flying, there's really not much that happens. In dungeons, though, like when you roundhouse axe chop a zombie, he spins around 360 before he falls in his face. And it's cartoony, but it's fun, and it feels like you really walloped that guy. It's got that cartoon pow. It's like, whoo. I find really cool. So I tend to take weapons that have that kind of a oomph to them. That's where I land there.
Yeah, I've been kind of going back and forth and just trying a lot of stuff out, but I really liked these unique sickles called the Last Laugh, and they had some bonus abilities built in, some really solid enchantments, and you're right, the kind of super fast melee attack is not super powerful, but it does feel like you are tearing through a bunch of enemies at once. And I ended up with a rogue build that was basically pairing that with anything that made you faster. So there's a mushroom that gives you additional speed boost and a little bit of extra damage. That plus Boots of Swiftness, plus any of the enchantments that would like add up for swiftness synergy or whatever it was called, speed synergy. Yeah, I was just running in, attacking everything really fast, and then running out again. And like there's some, again, different play styles that evolve from figuring out what makes a certain weapon just completely broken for one specific thing. That's part of the fun of it for me, and that's what I'm looking forward to with the upcoming stuff. I'm also looking forward to a greater variety of summonable pet mobs, because the only one I think that was in the beta was the wolf, and he was a little bit fragile. I often found that it would run in and start to attack something like a creeper and would immediately get blown up and fly across the screen. I'd be like, well, gotta wait another 30 seconds or so I can summon a wolf again. So I'm looking forward to some stuff in that is maybe a little bit more durable. I'm pretty sure there's an iron golem that you can hire in as a helper. And there's a few other things besides. I feel like it'd be kind of cool if you could almost like play for the other team a little bit and summon Vexes that would be on your side, like become an evoker effectively. So I kind of wonder if some stuff like that is in there. As far as what I've seen from promotional stuff and from a few people streaming it, I'm really looking forward to that corrupted beacon artifact. There's basically a beacon that you point at stuff and it lasers them. That and a couple of other artifacts introduced this other mechanic that I don't think was really in the beta at all, which is collecting souls from the stuff that you kill. Like instead of just like knocking something down, it disappears. This kind of ghostly image floats up out of it, like in Soul Sand, really. And that all kind of slowly floats towards you, or you can run towards them to collect them. And that's what powers those artifacts. So instead of being on a cooldown timer, you have to fight a bunch of stuff without it, and then you end up expending all of that energy next time you want to use the beacon. So there's some more balancing stuff in there and a little bit more kind of in-game currency for specific weapons and stuff that creates a different dynamic, and it's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a lot of the environments. I think being so taken away by the diverse and beautiful environments, and even just the first couple of levels, knowing that we've only just scratched the surface, I think is what I'm looking forward to most. Those lava-lined dungeons in the promotional, material, the redstone monster boss thing. Like, what does that look like in game? What does that boss battle level look like with all the redstone around? Like, I haven't played in a while, so I'm not forgetting, but I'm going to be loving the reminder of just how pretty the game is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be super cool when the time comes. Yeah, just the environments and that drool of like, I wonder when that block's going to be added to Minecraft, or in a positive spin, the inspiration that you might get to then take from Minecraft Dungeons back into your Minecraft builds and kind of go from there. Because we have started this medieval area on the Citadel, so with Minecraft Dungeons kind of being in that kind of ilk, it's going to be fun to explore the dungeons and see what changes. And like I'm looking forward to the dungeons that have a little bit more of a puzzle to them. Like, remember from one of the trailers that we talked about on the show, there was like a key where you'd have to pick up the little key character and then put them in different doors. Like, we didn't do any of that in the beta, so I'm looking forward to stuff like that that's a little bit more Zelda-like.
They were not in there at all, and now that you mention it, like they were quite a big part of the initial sort of trailers and stuff. And I completely noticed. I didn't notice their absence on account of how much fun I was having with the rest of the game, but you're right. Like the loot pig being another example of one of those kind of like passive mobs that end up being of benefit to the player if you want to chase them down and hack at them a couple of times. Let's save the feedback we got from our Discord until after this question, which is, how do you think, based on what you've seen of the beta and maybe a little bit of the full release now, how could the game be expanded in future or be improved upon?
So I went mostly with just improvements. I actually went back and looked at some of the notes that I had from our initial show, which I think was episode 83. I'll look that up. But I think the UI could have been made a little bit clearer. Things like the map was pretty dark when you bring it up. Being able to pan around the map, maybe not into places where you haven't been, but if you've explored it, it would be nice to be able to see back over the map rather than having to walk there physically in the world to reveal that part of the map. Or not to reveal, but to be able to see that part of the map, even though you've already been there. I think being able to pan around would be a little bit nicer, maybe just with like WASD or something like that. And also like a lighter overlay, I think would be a little bit nicer.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest, I think, criticism, and really I found it very hard to find any, a bit less character cover. And what I mean by that is when you're walking behind stuff, which is great for the depth of field and the sense of immersion in the game, if you walk underneath the tree canopy, you can still see where you are because the outline of your character kind of glows, has a little highlight on it. And so does any other character that you might be fighting. But it completely hides all the animations. You can't really see what's going on. And so I would prefer that the overlapping cover become transparent and I can still see myself, because you miss the cool fights, you miss the cool animations that you enjoy in the game when you're fighting a couple of mobs that happen to be behind the trees. And it happened more than once. Like, it happened several times in each gameplay session where I was just like, I wish I had been able to see that. That was probably really cool when that TNT rolled behind the tree and blew up a bunch of guys, but like I couldn't see it because everything was underneath the tree canopy. So that kind of stuff I think could be just improve the feeling, the good feeling of the game, just kind of up it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed when playing with you, very often one of us would pick up a weapon that the other person could use, and we weren't able to trade.
Yeah.
Like we weren't able to I couldn't just drop an item on the ground. I can appreciate how the looting is different for each person. So when you and I open a treasure chest, the gold would be split, but then there would be an item for you and an item for me, and there wouldn't be any kind of necessary, squabbling over who got what. You were just assigned a thing that your loot table gave you. But after that's done, and even if you can't do it during a dungeon, once you get back to the menu screen where you're hanging out with your party, I feel like you should be able to drop, an item, and be able to swap it between party members, because it feels kind of bad when like maybe I picked up that crazy cool pink bow, but I had no use for it because I was the tank, and it would be really cool to be able to give that to you, and have you play with it. Again, not necessarily thinking about ways to quote unquote game the system, but just having more fun and not having to pass up fun opportunities.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I do think being able to trade stuff between players could be very useful. And again, I can understand why it's not in the game, but also, yeah, kind of fun when you've got a multiplayer game going with people and you've got people who like to play certain classes just to be able to help them out. Loot being very individual in this game makes sense because then you can play offline a whole bunch, come back with a bunch of other stuff on your fully tricked out character, and then see how quickly you can blaze through everything else. As far as I've seen, the campaign takes place entirely in the overworld, and I'm not trying to spoil anything for anybody. I don't know that 100% for certain, but I was expecting there to be a bit more, interplay between the dimensions and stuff, but it seems like it's an overworld thing, so maybe for DLC we get an adventure into the Nether at some point, maybe even something related to the end. Like, Minecraft has a lot of depth that has not been plumbed by this game, even as they have gone in a different direction with it and added a bunch of new mobs of their own. It's not like they are short of Minecraft content. It's like they're kind of doing their own thing with it for now. So I would love a campaign set in the Nether, maybe even the end. I was thinking, what if the Arch-Illager discovers the power of the Ender Dragon and decides that's another dimension to conquer or something like that. Again, I don't know the full extent of the story and what happens to the Arch-Illager, especially with how sympathetic they make him in the opening cutscene, but it could be a direction to go with it. And there is DLC planned for this game. It is one of the things that you get with the Hero Edition. You're effectively buying like the season pass for the next 2 DLCs. So potentially we'll see something like that in the pipeline already. Who knows? I also think it would be great if player design skins could make it into the game somehow. Even if they're just restricted to single player, which I know happens on some Bedrock platforms to avoid, inappropriate content getting into multiplayer situations. But I think it'd be really good if we could somehow have our own skins imported from accounts, even if it's just a Bedrock account, into the single-player experience of Minecraft Dungeons. It would be super fun to go through this entire thing dressed as my Minecraft avatar. But the selection they've given us has been good. There are some that I think you can unlock as you go as well, which is super fun. So we'll see. I'm sure I'll settle into one of those additional characters. And one thing I have mentioned on the show previously when we discussed dungeons is the idea of there being some sort of level designer. I had a brief chat with Mark Watson, Mark IRL on Twitter from Mojang about this, and he said he was told that apparently the implementation of Unreal Engine, which is how is the engine that this whole game runs on, made it very difficult, if not completely impossible, to implement any kind of like level designer. And it makes sense because these levels have been clearly designed with a level of handcrafted care that would be really difficult to have players apply themselves, or to moderate if there was some kind of like user-generated content platform they could then upload levels to, which would probably be the point in a kind of Little Big Planet kind of way, or Dreams, or any of the kind of the more recent examples of that happening. But yeah, it is still looking like a fantastic game, and from what I've seen of people playing over the weekend, everyone seems pretty happy with it. Let's briefly check in with our patrons. Montrask had the question about what the gameplay experience was like, which we've more or less covered. It's a combat-focused, dungeon crawler kind of game, and people have seen games like this before, I'm sure, even if they're not familiar with Diablo in particular, which is probably the most notable example. How are you playing, Joel? You're playing on mouse and keyboard?
Yes, I bought the Hero Edition. Thanks again for the birthday gift, Alistair. Only have an Xbox 360, so and I don't play on that much. My control preference is mouse and keyboard dungeon crawler experience because I'm an old school Diablo guy. I know you play on with a controller, but you're playing on a PC with a controller, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, I play a lot of other games just on my Steam library. I'm playing through some Final Fantasy games again right now, and I have my controller plugged into my PC most of the time for that. And so I'm just used to it. It's got a more arcadey feel. It's the kind of game that I would sit down and relax and play. And ultimately, I don't think you need the fine-tuning of the mouse and keyboard that you would need for Minecraft or a first-person shooter. I think first-person games require that level of camera control and being able to sort of whip pan around that games like this don't need as much. And I can totally understand the if it's something you're used to using keyboard and mouse for, if it feels more intuitive to you, then I'm not gonna say you're playing it wrong one way or the other. But I think the Xbox controller just feels comfortable as a control interface. All the buttons are mapped pretty well. I think you can even remap the controls if you want to.
You can, yeah. Same with the keyboard.
Yeah, which is a great move for accessibility, of course. So yeah, I'm mostly playing on an Xbox 360 controller plugged into my PC.
Now, I don't know about crossplay, but I feel like there's less of a problem here. I feel like no matter what you're playing on, you're going to be able to team up with friends. So really just play, I'd say start with your controller experience, whether you want to be mouse and keyboard, whether you want to be PC with a controller, or whether you're going to want to be on your Xbox with a controller. I think you just pick your poison and where you're most comfortable, whether you want to lean back experience, on the couch, or whether you want to be at a mouse and keyboard. It's also part of Xbox Game Pass. And if you get the version of Game Pass that includes PC, I believe that then you can play it on both platforms. Don't quote me on that. I would double check before you make a purchase. Although Xbox Game Pass right now is like $1 a month or something. It's so cheap until they come to a final realization. And even then, it's going to be worth it for the number of different games that you have access to. So look into Xbox Game Pass if you haven't already. And yeah, like Jonny said, the gameplay focus we've pretty much already covered. I think that it's going to be a lot of fun to play with friends, and I think it's going to allow some parent-kid team-ups that are going to be really fun. So if you're looking at getting dungeons, I'd say look at it from how you're going to play, and if you're going to play with kids, then figure out who's going to be where, in the household, and what's going to be easiest for them to access, and then just make the purchase accordingly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's going to be a family game for some folks, and it does seem like a very family-focused, family-friendly game, and I think kids are going to get a kick out of playing with parents.
We talked a lot about axes and like hacking at people in the episode, but it's very cartoony, like Warner Brothers Bugs Bunny type stuff. There's no blood. It's all just kind of like bashing bad guys.
Yeah.
And it's all very. The gameplay itself, I think, is straightforward enough that I think even very young players, depending on how parents want to gauge the kind of content that the kids have access to, I think it's going to be accessible from a gameplay mechanic standpoint very, very easily. Like point your character at the bad guys and swing. Like it's not a difficult concept.
Yes, definitely. Should we briefly go over Cosmic's answers to the survey?
Yes, I'm just flipping over to the smeltery now. We had a quick little feedback from Cosmic as well. And in regards to how much did we play during the beta? A lot. Like pretty much every day it was available, says Cosmic. How much do we plan to play in the future? A whole lot more. I'm sensing a theme here, Cosmic. Single player or multiplayer? Both. Most appealing aspect of the game so far it's something familiar yet different. I'm not a big fan of killing mobs in regular Minecraft, but I totally am in this one. Favorite weapons, artifacts, and loadout? The sickles. So good. She's on Team Jonny, I think. Any features we're looking forward to that weren't in the beta but have been in promotional videos? I'm looking forward to seeing more of the levels. All of the ones in the beta and videos I've loved seeing. They just look so beautiful. And hearing more of the fantastic music, which we actually forgot to mention. So yeah, that's a great point, Cosmic. How could the game expand or be improved? Not sure on this one yet. I'm looking forward to playing and seeing what's available.
Yeah.
So I think that we can be kind of overcritical just because it gives us a little bit more for talking points on the show, but I think the general population is just very happy with the game and just excited to see more of it. And I think it's going to be a positive experience. And if you find anything you don't like about it, I think it's probably going to be very specific to you, and maybe not a big deal even if you do find something.
Yes. Well, folks, Minecraft Dungeons does come out tomorrow. There is a link to the Minecraft.net blog post, and I think there's an FAQ on there as well that will tell you basically what time it comes out in your time zone. It's 9 a.m. in the UK. It's 9 a.m. BST, so I'll probably be playing it on my stream tomorrow. I imagine, Joel, you might be streaming it at some point this week as well.
You are correct, sir.
Yeah, check it out. I hope you guys enjoy. And if you guys have any feedback about your Minecraft Dungeons experience that you would like to be considered for reading out on the show, I'm sure we will have a full episode about Minecraft Dungeons next week as well that you guys could contribute to if you'd like to. Joel will have the email address for you in a moment, but that's going to be it for this episode of The Spawn Chunks. You can find more information about the show and links to the stuff we've talked about today at thespawnchunks.com. The music for the show is composed by me, and The Spawn Chunks is proud to be a listener-supported podcast. If you get some value out of the show, consider putting some value back in. You can do that at patreon.com/thespawnchunks, where joining our community by pledging at any level gets you an invite to our patrons-only Discord chat and gets us closer to our next goals, which is now live recording again, because we dipped down below the $400 milestone, and we would like to get back up above that before we start recording the show live in Discord with our patrons again. Special thanks go out to our content engineers Cameron Segelski, Greener Canuck, JD Williamson, Yakov Nastin, and Yitz for your support on this episode.
Sharing the podcast with your friends is the easiest way to support the show. It is 100% free. You can find us at The Spawn Chunks on Twitter and Instagram, but a personal recommendation is by far the best way to share the podcast with friends. Just tell a friend about it, and where they can find it, and where they can listen to it. A podcast review is another easy way to increase the visibility of the Spawn Chunks, so leave us a star rating on the Apple Podcast app, or whatever app you happen to be listening on. Even if you don't use the app, it only takes a minute to pop in, leave a review, and be on your way. It really helps us get in front of the eyeballs and ear holes of new listeners. You can email the show at spawnchunkmail@gmail.com. I'm going to say that again, spawnchunkmail@gmail.com. You can subscribe on iTunes, Android, Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube. The RSS link is on the spawnchunks.com, and the patron-only RSS link is on the Patreon page, which is the only place you can listen to the render distance, the extended version of the podcast.
My name is Jonny, but online I go by Pixel and you can find most of what I do at youtube.com/pixelriffs, where I attempt to make sense of this crazy and wonderful game in a series called the Minecraft Survival Guide. I stream 3 days a week on Twitch, doing behind-the-scenes work for Survival Guide. We'll probably dip out of that to play a bit of Dungeons, and I'm also the voice of the unofficial Hermitcraft recap, which you can find through a quick YouTube search. Aside from that, I'm at Pixelriffs on both Twitter and Instagram. Joel, where can people find you online?
Everything I'm doing online, including my illustration and design portfolio, is at joelduggan.com. If you are interested in hiring me, then just drop me a line there. I am full up until the end of June, but there is no harm in getting in line, because that tends to happen during the summer. So please check it out, joelduggan.com. The Citadel Cafe is my other podcast, all about sci-fi and fantasy entertainment, which you can find at thecitadelcafe.com. Spoiler, I've been watching the Back to the Future series for the first time in a long time, so that's probably going to be talked about on the show. And of course, you can follow me at Joel Duggan on all the social media that matters, and I will of course point you towards twitch.tv/JoelDuggan, where I will be more than likely playing Dungeons at some point tomorrow.
Thanks for visiting the Spawn Chunks. The world outside is infinite. Go forth and loot the room.